Thank you. My name is Stephanie Mudick. I run global regulatory strategy at JPMorgan Chase. So I'm on the front page of the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal every single day. Sad but true. I had the great fortune of being an honoree here exactly 10 years ago. And when I was here, I made the observation at the time that from a very, very early age, boys are taught to aim high. They make their mark in the snow, they make their mark wherever they go. But you know, it's literal and it's figurative, right? They're really taught that they can drive the direction of their lives. They can be the conductor of their own train. And that they have every right to expect that they have certain rights in life. Girls don't have that benefit, although we have many, many other benefits. And Legal Momentum really is an organization that tries very, very hard to make sure that there is no deficit. I would say that Ivy McKinney, who I'm here to introduce, and is my new friend, and hopefully will be a long-standing friend, really is a great leader in respect of determining the path of her own life. She is a great American success story. She was born in Lynchburg, Virginia, to a working-class family, and she grew up in Newark. In her own words, "We lived in the inner city, but we never felt like we were poor because we had such a rich upbringing." She credits who she is to her parents, who wanted more for their children than they themselves had, placed a premium on the education that they didn't get a chance to experience themselves, and had the right balance of pushing and supporting their children in the pursuit of excellence. Her mother, says Ivy, was really the embodiment and driver of principles and core values. Work hard, give everything you do your all, and with 3 daughters and a son, wanted to make sure, in particular, that her daughters could take care of themselves and would take care of themselves. So when Ivy and her closest sister, her Irish twin as she calls her, graduated from their Newark Public High School, Ivy was valedictorian, her sister was salutatorian in the same year. She says, "We wanted the top 2 spots. We didn't even care who got which spot." And then she says, because she may feel a little bit guilty, "My sister was class president, though." All 3 of those girls went to Princeton. They were there at the same time. 3 children at Princeton, and her parents didn't have to pay for it. What an accomplishment. And I can't imagine that there are many families, if any families, who could actually say that. Ivy went to law school at Yale. She thought she'd be a public defender, but after a stint representing inmates at a local federal prison, she was dissuaded, not surprisingly. From law school, she went to the now defunct Dewey Ballantine, where she learned how to be a practicing lawyer, all the while feeling like a little bit of an oddity as a black woman in this traditional white shoe law firm. When Ivy interviewed at Xerox, where she spent the last 29 years, she says, "I knew it was the place for me." That being said, when she came home from her interview and threw up violently, she wasn't quite sure. Maybe her body was telling her something. It was, but it was not telling her that. She was pregnant with her first child. Still, Xerox wanted her, and sure enough, she started working there when she was 5 months pregnant. Her mother had always said to her, "Go where you're wanted," and Xerox is a place, she says, that has always welcomed her with open arms. The executives at Xerox identified very early the great assets and the great talent that she had and all she had to offer the company, and they've been smart enough to hold on to her for a very long time. She's not only the deputy general counsel there, she runs the global ethics department, training and educating close to 150,000 employees in 160 countries to escalate ethical issues when they see them, and acting as the investigator, the analyst, and the spokesperson for Xerox regarding any ethical issue that comes up. She is their conscience in a way, and in that sense and more, she is her mother's daughter. You should also know that coming from a family of such underachievers, her own daughter, who of course went to Princeton, is getting a dual graduate degree at Harvard. I'm pointing my finger at you. Her son is doing his dissertation at Columbia. Somehow, she has figured it out. She's powerful, she's effective, she's able to prioritize both work and family, and she is now also taking care of the two aging parents who raised her so beautifully. She says she is blessed. But in the words of her soon-to-be PhD son, "Mom, the difference between me and all of my friends from growing up, many of whom are struggling today, is that you were my mother, and that made all the difference." So I'd like to welcome Ivy up here.
Thank you, Stephanie, for that eloquent introduction. That last piece always makes me tear up. I had many memories with my son when I wondered if he appreciated anything that I did for him, but but hearing those words warms my heart quite a bit. I'd like to thank Legal Momentum for honoring me today. It is truly humbling to be included among all of the incredible women that have been honored before me and that are being honored here today. And I really do sincerely appreciate this opportunity. When I think about the theme of this luncheon, Aiming High, it's very reminiscent of all the messages that I heard from my parents over the years, especially from my mother. Aim high, reach for the stars, always do your best. I'm sure everyone in here probably heard those same messages from their parents, and it's those messages that help to shape us and to form our work ethic and define who we are. But as I think about that theme, there are many, many other corollaries to that theme that help to define who we are and shape who we are. And I thought I would spend a little bit of time talking about a few of those and some that have been evidenced in encounters that I've had throughout my life that are very, very special to me. So the first corollary that I want to talk about is aim high, but keep your feet planted firmly on the ground. Now, my mother, who is probably the biggest inspiration in my life, always told me, don't let success go to your head. If you get a big head, it's going to cloud your view, you're going to get confused, you're going to lose sight of what you want to do. And for the most part, I listened to that, but then there were times when I got so impressed with myself that, you know, I let my vision get clouded a little bit. You know, as Stephanie said, I graduated as valedictorian from my high school. My class started out with over 900 students. I was ranked #1, and I thought that made me special. And then I applied to college, and I applied only to Ivy League schools. Why? Because no one told me better, but I applied, and frankly, if you did that today, I think that would be the definition of insanity. But I did apply, and miracle of all miracles, I got into every place that I applied. And I selected Princeton University, and I went to campus at Princeton, and I was expecting them to roll out the red carpet. Why? Because I was me. I was a terrific straight-A student, and I deserved to be showered with special things because I was special. And then came my first semester midterm exams. Now, I did what I thought I needed to do to prepare for the exams, but I didn't exactly knock myself out. And I went to pick up my first exams, and the very first one I picked up had a gigantic red C plastered on the top of it. And I was incredulous because I was an A student, and A students don't get Cs. So I walked over to the professor's office. Actually, I stormed over there, and I sort of barged into his office, interrupting him from whatever he was doing, and I said, "I think there's been a mistake with my exam." And he looked at me somewhat in shock and said, "Why do you think that?" And I said, "Because you gave me a C." And he paused for a minute, and then he said, "You're right. That is a mistake." And I said, "Thank you, God, I knew it." And then he continued, "I didn't give you that C, you earned it." And at that moment, I felt that the earth had stopped spinning. A load of bricks had just been dropped on me. I had been knocked off my little pedestal because what he was saying was that my performance was just mediocre. It was average, nothing special about it, and that was not how I viewed myself, and it was not how I thought he viewed me. So I did what any self-respecting adult would do under the circumstances. I broke into tears, and I sat and I cried like a baby. And the professor, who in later years wrote me a letter and said it was the most melodramatic display he had ever seen. Oh, I threatened to withdraw. I said, "I'm not college material. I don't belong here." He talked me down off the cliff. And he said a lot of things that really, really encouraged me. He told me, first of all, I needed to get down off my high horse. He said that I needed to hunker down, I needed to be more focused, and to give it all that I had to give. And he also told me that the fact that I had been an A student in the past didn't mean anything for the future, that if I wanted to succeed and continue succeeding, I had to work at it every day and not let up. There were no entitlements. I couldn't expect to be rewarded for things that had happened in the past. His words stuck with me all the way through college, all the way through law school, all the way through my career, and they stick with me every day. That message, those few minutes that I spent with him are words that have helped to define me and who I am and how I got here today. And I've always appreciated that from him. That takes me to my next corollary. Aim high, but don't forget to reach behind you. Don't forget to reach back. As we attain success, I think we get very comfortable in our existence, in our environment. Sometimes we become complacent about other people who are needy and need help, who need to be pulled forward a little bit, and we often don't do all that we can. I fell prey to that for quite some time, but I don't, I don't anymore. And I attribute it to a circumstance that happened to me several years ago. I was in my office one day, and I got a phone call from a law firm that my company Xerox does a lot of work with. And they asked me if I would be willing to meet with one of their clients, and I thought, well, gee, that's an odd request, but sure. And then they explained to me that it wasn't a traditional client. It was a little girl named Darla, a 7-year-old who had the year before immigrated from Haiti. And she came to this country not speaking any English, and in the short year she had been here, she pretty much mastered the language as a 7-year-old could. And she was spending all of her time reading. She was a voracious reader because she wanted to perfect her language skills. And apparently during one of her tutoring sessions, one of the attorneys had asked her what she wanted to be when she grew up. And she said, well, I wish I could be a lawyer like you. And the lawyer said, well, you can. And she said, no, I can't. And they asked her, well, why can't you? And she said, I can't because of the color of my skin, and I don't have the right kind of hair. Now, when I heard that message, it just ripped me apart because I thought, here we are in the 21st century in one of the greatest nations in the world, and we have a young girl a precocious, precious little girl who believed that she could not aim high, she could not strive for her personal ambition and pursuit because of the color of her skin and because of her ethnicity. So I immediately agreed to meet with her, and I rounded up a bunch of my female colleagues at Xerox. Thankfully, Xerox has a rich history of diversity, and so it wasn't very difficult to round up a number of women attorneys from all different walks of life. And I went home and I jumped on the internet and started looking for books about black women attorneys, and I ordered a few books for her. And then I had the brilliant idea, she's a little girl, what little girl doesn't like Barbie? So I was going to buy her a black lawyer Barbie doll. And I stayed up until 2:30 in the morning looking for one, and as hard as I tried, I couldn't find one, but I went one better. I actually found a black Barbie running for president. So I bought it for her and invited her to come into my office, and with my female colleagues, we met with her, and the little girl, Darla, got to see that women lawyers came in all shapes and sizes and ethnicities and colors and hair textures and hair colors. Well, I didn't tell her that some of that hair texture and color had come out of a bottle, but I figured that she would figure that out on her own soon enough. But what she got to see was that there was no mold. You could be whoever you are and become a lawyer. And when I think back on that day, I can only hope that we made an impression on Darla, that she walked away from that session thinking, I can be whoever I want to be, I just have to work at it. And I believe as we attain success, we all have to keep in mind the Darlas of the world, the little 7-year-old girls, the young high school students, the young college graduates, the new young professionals who need a helping hand, someone you can reach back, help pull forward, give them words of encouragement, and do something to help make them believe that they can aim high and reach their goals. So I would encourage everybody in this room to do that, and it could be through mentoring relationships, simple encounters like I had with Darla, and a host of other ways. That takes me to my third corollary: aim high, but never let your skills exceed your virtues. This is my Xerox Chief Ethics Officer voice now. Those are not my words, though. Aim high, but never let your skills exceed your virtues. Those words were spoken by the former dean of the Yale Law School during a commencement address. My nephew was graduating from the law school, and the dean stated those words, and they stuck with me and have stuck with me for a long time. Because, you know, it doesn't take long to look in the newspaper, watch the news, to see people who have achieved great successes, have tremendous power, and somehow they lose their moral compass. They use their skills and their power to do things that are unseemly, to do things that are illegal, that are unfair. They use their power to take advantage of others, to treat people with disrespect, and it's not right. You know, last night my husband and I were talking about a related topic, and he mentioned that when people achieve success and produce results, people are far more tolerant of that kind of behavior. My thinking, though, is that success, power, they're not a license that enable you to engage in malevolent activities or to treat people with disrespect. We should always role model our behavior for others. So aim high, but always, always, always make sure that your skills, your virtue, your humanity, your civility all stay apace. Because without that, I don't think you really are a success. So I hope that all of you will hear that message and take heed to it. And with that, I would like to once again thank Legal Momentum for this recognition. I'd like to thank and congratulate all of the other honorees of this evening. I know that you will continue doing the great things that you're doing, and hope to have an opportunity to work with some of you in the future. I'd like to thank all of the law firms who came out to support me today, and more importantly, to support the great work of the Legal Momentum organization. Every dollar you spent here today will go a long way. And speaking of dollars, I hope none of you are thinking about sending me a bill for the time you're here today, but I think you all know better. Next, I'd like to thank my friends and colleagues from Xerox, my fellow Xeroids, as we tend to call ourselves. It's you and others like you who have kept me at Xerox for 29 years. And as I stand up here and look at you, it reminds me of the great things that we can do as a team. And it also reminds me of how much I rely on and depend on each of you. And I really and truly appreciate everything that you do. And last but not least, I'd like to thank my family, my son Warren, who is a graduate student at Columbia but has somehow managed to recently move to Virginia, is not able to be here today, but my daughter Dana is here, and my husband Fred, we've been married for almost 32 years, he's here as well. I want to thank them for being here with me today, but more importantly, I want to thank them for always being with me throughout my life. I love you, you're the light of my life. And thanks to everyone else, and enjoy the rest of the lunch.